My first question is, did we remember to tell Dan what he had to do to get in here?
He's not, he won't be attending tonight.
Oh. Oh, I thought that was what we were doing, was meet with him tonight.
No, we need to vote, we need to decide whether we want him to create, to work with us to make a
okay.
comprehensive plan.
Okay.
And I guess we need, if we do want to do that, which I hope will happen, we need to figure out where we want to get the funding. Or
Yeah, do we have any idea what kind of money we're talking?
well, I asked, I did send him, I sent him an email on Monday and he didn't respond. In that email, it asked for his hourly fee. And so I forwarded that email again this morning, hoping that he would get back to me, but I haven't been home all afternoon, so I guess I could look on my phone to see if he got back to me. So that's one piece of it that I don't have an answer to.
Well, that's part of what I need to know in order to talk about how we fund it, because.
Well, let me just look.
Take your time, June. Take your time.
Yeah, let me just look on my phone, just in case he did send an email. No, I don't see it. So I don't have an answer.
Okay.
I tried.
I mean, we got some $600 in the donations account. And that's for the Bullet House, so we could spend that. We could spend part of our budget money. We could spend, and we could look to the society, which has got some money put aside for building fund stuff, so. There's a few places to get money.
And we still have mitigation money.
There is still some of the mitigation money, and that would, if the select board was on board for that, they could spend that.
And then after May 2nd, if we're successful in getting our CPA warrant article passed, then we have 30,000 available for architectural services.
Yeah.
So I think what we have to do is make sure that we want to approach it in the way that he offers.
Yeah, I guess so. And I don't know how I don't know how much I understand that necessarily, but we'll find out. That was part of what I wanted to ask about tonight, is what that would entail and what it would accomplish on our way.
Well, I think if we were to work out a comprehensive plan, he calls it a comprehensive plan, we would know how to frame our grant application at whatever point we do that, and we would have things sorted out so that we had some priorities.
And I think I'm also interested in how, the time frame. How much time does it take to do this, and then to do that, and then to do this? That's not really clear to me, and that would help with our decision making. But I feel like we're doing a pretty good job of enlisting the help from others, having Tim's surveys, and then if we are to talk now with Dan, and that, if we could sort of lay it out with an idea of what's going to come first, what has to come next. Where are we in over our heads and we're going to need some help from somebody, and who will that be? I think the grant writing is going to have to involve Margaret or others who could offer to give us a hand, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the kind of laying out I think maybe Dan will be able to help us with, as well as his thoughts on the actual work on the house, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, that's really my question is this a comprehensive plan from the architect's point of view, or is it a comprehensive plan of how we approach the whole thing, including all of this schedule and
Hmm.
putting together a
I think I would vote for that because that will include the architect's plan. I mean, well, he wouldn't be the architect that would give the final plan, but it would give
Yeah.
us a sense of what he feels needs to be sure that we include it in
Yeah,
the plan. But I think without knowing about the time frame and who might be able to give us help with which part of something that we're not sure how to do, it's going to be difficult to move forward.
okay.
Well, I can, I can send him or leave a call. Maybe I should just leave a phone message at this point. I think he needs to talk to all of us as a group
Yeah,
to determine that. And we can pay him for that. And if we're uncertain, then we'll have to talk some more. That's all.
and I'm interested in how he'll react to the documents that he's already got,
Mhm.
the 2 reports from Tim and our
Yeah, well,
preservation plan, and what, if anything, out of all of those makes sense from his point of view. And
one comment he made to me when we spoke last week was that he felt that Tim's estimates for much of the work were low. That he was willing to comment on. We talked about engineering as part of what would help us make a determination about some of the recommendations that Tim made. And I don't want to get ahead of myself because we're already ahead of the ahead of the agenda here, but I just wanted to make sure that we can use our money for architectural services to finance civil engineering and design, because he mentioned that. He said, make sure you what you're asking for will include engineering and design. So that's.
I'm wondering whether we need to consider that modification of the motion for town meeting.
Okay.
For
Well,
architectural services, including engineering and design.
right. I'd feel.
Excuse me, including associated engineering and design, something like that, so that there's no issues with
Okay.
June Poland about it.
Yeah. I'm going to write that down. Associated issues. I'm trying to think of anything else specifically that he was willing to comment on. He had not. He hadn't read the preservation plan when I spoke to him last week because he just would have received it Monday. He did have the floor plan. He did have the National Register document, which I don't believe he said that he read. But he did go through the 2 surveys.
The other interest, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Just that based on the issues that the surveys raised, he really didn't think we had it. We were that far enough ahead in planning and understanding to do round 29. That was the third takeaway that
Mhm.
I got from our conversation.
You didn't think we could get it done fast enough to do
That's right,
it for next year?
right, to make that application. And
Because the
I think
people, the people were
later on,
contacted-
Janet will talk to us about the CMRPC.
Yeah, we talked
and they
with,
had some suggestions that might impact our work with Dan if we decide to do that. But I think we at least need to have an initial meeting with him, and I think that has to be a Zoom meeting. I don't think it can be on site. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
I'm afraid it has to be.
Mhm.
Okay, do you want to vote on this, or
Sure, let's vote on it.
you want to frame the motion, Barry, so that
Well,
That's
is it really just a motion to hold an exploratory meeting with Dan in regard to the possibility of doing a comprehensive plan for us?
that would be fine with me. I mean,
Okay, I make that as a motion.
Say it one more time, any way you like.
To have an exploratory meeting
Yep,
with Dan Barton.
yep.
To discuss the possibility of having him do a comprehensive plan.
Yeah. Got it.
okay,
We need a better idea about what that would consist of.
Right.
okay,
And
And
the other
that's why
thing,
we need this meeting.
and I think the other thing to keep in mind is, we're really attached to the idea and committed to the idea that we're going to move forward with this project. But we also have to realize that there is such a thing as a pre-development grant. It would push it off by one more year, but it would allow us the time to follow through on some of the things that Dan might recommend. So I just put that in the back of our minds, that we don't have to come to a standstill. But if we find that there's more prep than we realized, that's always an option.
So what we would do then is in round 29, we would apply for a pre-development grant, which
Yes,
would give
and
us some funding to help us prepare the bigger one.
Yes. And, at first I was thinking that we were so far along that we would really probably didn't need a pre-development grant. But then some of the questions, particularly the ones that came up with the CMRPC, when we talked to them, I began to realize that there may be some questions we have to address that we haven't addressed yet fully.
we should go back to our motion here and.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
We need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay,
I didn't make it, did I? No, Barry did.
I made
Okay,
it.
I'll second it.
okay. So we need a little roll call vote. Barry,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
and June, aye. Okay, so we have, I will communicate with Dan that we want an exploratory meeting to determine what's involved with a comprehensive plan.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay.
Janet, you just mentioned talking to CMRPC. Can you flesh out at all what you just said about questions that we don't know the answers to?
Yes, but is this when we want to do it? June, you said something about doing it later in the meeting, but can we go ahead now?
I think Yeah, I had it under other business because we only had I only
Yeah,
had
yeah.
two or three
Whatever.
things.
Well, one of the things, you want me to go ahead with it then?
Do you want to back up and vote on prior minutes or just let that go till
Oh,
next
no,
time?
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, God, I don't know anything about minutes.
All right. Well,
All
I
right.
did send minutes for March 30th and April 6th. And we'll just defer voting on those until we meet again.
Till
Which
we
would
have
be
our regular meeting, yeah.
till we have our regular meeting. But just to
Yeah.
give you a heads up that I did send those out. We
Okay,
still have other minutes to write, but at least we have two in the hole.
okay.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And the next thing would be, and I think we've already had a stab at it, was the CPA warrant article. I sent out, and I don't know if either one of you have had a chance to look, but this was sent out maybe Monday.
I saw what I believe was the latest thing of it, and I
Yeah.
thought it was okay.
Well, I just don't want us to be boxed in. And so I didn't put the in the summary. This is about the summary.
Yeah.
Okay, the description
Yes,
that we have to hand out. I didn't want to put in the figure of 100,000. I don't want us to be boxed in by that because that might be an unrealistic expectation. And what else? So this is what it says now. Do you want me just to read it?
Yes.
The Historical Commission seeks funding for rehabilitation and restoration of the town-owned Bullard House. Structural issues, that is foundation, drainage, floor underlayment, and support, identified from building surveys, require professional architectural services. And I think we will also have to include engineering and design there. The next sentence, additionally, architectural services are integral to our submission of a Mass Historical Commission grant application. The cost for such services must be funded from monies outside of the grant award itself. Now, that isn't true if you apply for a pre-development grant, but anyway, the CPA funds approved last November, as well as funds requested under this article, will be used to leverage our application for an MHC matching grant. So there's no mention of round 29. There's no mention of the amount that we hope will be matched. And then the last sentence, only Community Preservation Act funds reserved for historic resources are sought in this warrant article. And then it just says the Berlin Historical Commission. And then I think Barry agrees that we should including with, when we say architectural services, we should also say including associated issues of engineering and design.
Mm-hmm.
Including associated
Issues,
issues.
or maybe engineering and design issues. Maybe that's,
No, instead of issues, I'd say including services of for engineering and design,
Mm-hmm.
including associated services
okay,
for engineering and design.
okay.
And plunk that into the spot after architectural services. Now,
Okay.
that's a change from what the article says, but I think that's right. And I think we want to put that in the motion because it just gives us a little bit more latitude in how we can use this money.
So,
And when we can use it.
what about the article itself? Does that need to be amended?
You can't change the article. The article's already in the warrant, published and gone out. It's the motion that we make in town meeting that we put the change in.
Oh, well,
And I guess I better talk to the select board about that right now. I mean, to the town manager, whatever. She probably already got the thing off the print. But we can change the motion anyway on the floor.
and the motion is just to include this extra wording at the appropriate.
No, the motion under this article is going to have most of the words of the article in it.
Okay,
But
It's
we
not-
will add these words into it. In the end, the key is what the town actually votes on that motion, and that action will be, I mean, that's what'll end up in the minutes of the meeting and the proceedings and so on. And that's what the appropriation of the money. What was in the article will no longer be important once the town votes.
okay. So what do we need to do to make sure this wording is added?
When you read the motion, you're gonna read it with those words in it. We'll give it to you. You'll have a
Oh.
written motion with it all in it.
Okay. All
You
right,
just read it.
can I just
it.
read?
Yeah.
just- Okay,
Most of the motions are on a motion sheet that the town administrator produces and passes out to everybody as they arrive. And, but that doesn't mean that we can't have it slightly different.
okay. I didn't realize the difference between the actual article and the motion.
Yeah. The article sets what the business is that's before the meeting. And it sets the scope pretty much of what it is. And then you can make the motion you can make the motion somewhat different as long as it's within the general realm of what the article has warned people about. You can't go crazy and say, we're going to use this to build a street.
Mhm.
uh, you know.
Is it customary to acknowledge to the crowd that if this is slightly different than what was on their paper? Can we just go ahead and make it different, not have to say anything about it?
You can make it different, but you should also then say, you'll note we added these words, and we did that because we know that in order to do the architectural services, we have to have some of those services as well.
Mhm.
In other words, they have to go to an engineer to do certain aspects of their, in order for their work to
Mhm.
be done.
Do you want to write that down, June, so that you remember?
Well, I have the
Well,
wording,
Okay.
and
I'll-
the wording will
I'll-
go into the description, the summary description, and then
Yes.
Barry, I guess, has offered to make that part of the motion.
And I'll write the motion for you.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Okay. I'll send out the description again with those extra words.
Yeah.
Because we have to make copies. How many? Well, maybe I could meet with you at the town offices, Barry, to make those copies.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think we can use what you've got. I would print it out in larger type. So that, I mean, the big thing is simply, we'll just take your file in the computer and, you know, blow up the size of the type and put it 2 up on a sheet and print it, make a print of that. And then we go make a bunch of copies and cut them in half.
okay,
We'll make like 200 copies of it. We probably won't need them all.
okay. All right, so that's resolved. There are several other business items, and why don't we take up Janet's takeaway from the CMRPC meeting first?
Yeah,
We'll
I
do
mean,
that first.
it was a casual thing. And that seemed like a good way, at least to start out talking with them. Felt that the amount of work that we've done already with Tim's surveys and then the potential to talk with Dan, which, you know, I didn't know for sure if we were going to do that until just now. And that does make an impression when you're applying for a grant, that you've really worked at it, you know, to try to get as much help and support as you can. They thought that the idea of hiring a civil engineer through, it could be the same thing you're talking about with our conversation with Dan, June, was really important because it's a building with a lot of challenges, and it's a building with lots of different people giving input into what they think should be done with it and what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done. And they thought, you know, maybe before you go too much farther, to enlist a civil engineer, which I think, you know, Dan may very likely say the same thing, was a very good idea. So you really know that you've got something to work with the building. And the other thing is, the help with writing the grant. She said that, you know, they have people who are pretty experienced with that. And, you know, an RFP, RFQs, all of these different things, components that we have to put in the grant, that they would be happy to help with that if we decided that we need some help. You know, they would review it, go over it, see if they think everything's in it that should be in it. A little bit what Margaret may end up doing for us. So we may not need to have both of them do it. But if it turns out that Margaret, you know, isn't able to, or, you know, that we just thought we'd like a second opinion even, then they would be happy to do that. Also,
A lot of that's going to depend on who's got experience with this particular kind of a grant.
Yeah.
And secondly, remember, Margaret's gone the end of June, and that we're not going to be writing our grant till well after that. So,
Right.
but her replacement hopefully will be similarly helpful, but you don't know until it happens.
No, and the other thing is that Trish, who was one of the women who we talked to today, was that she felt that they had, she mentioned somebody's name and I didn't bother to write it down, but somebody on their staff who would probably do a really good job with that. Who? Oh, hang on. Tim is in the kitchen and he just heard me. Connor, guy named Connor. Connor apparently has experience with a grant like this. Yeah. And they have done some work. The other woman that came today, Carrie, has done some work with also with Tim knows all these people, so he keeps calling names out to me. Northbrook something. Anyway, so that they would be more than happy if we wanted them to go over anything or consult with us in any way that we might need some extra help. They also, they have connections with some of the people at the state level who are working with grants and working with history as well. And so she felt that they could make the, you know, call for us and connect us with that person or those people. If we wanted to, you know, if we have questions and we call the general number for the Massachusetts Historical Society grant, and we don't get a fast response or we don't get a thorough response, that they could give us a better number to call, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well,
so I felt like and there probably were more things too, but I think those were the three things that kind of jumped out at me. And oh yeah, did I mention that keep an eye out for other grants for us that we might be interested in applying for?
Yeah.
But I think their general feeling was don't rush it. Say don't try to rush through it just so that you can, get finished and make sure you do the round 29 with the development grant. That you might want to consider if there's some things that we have a lot of questions still, and that we might want to consider doing the pre-development grant. And so that's something for us to look at. I'd have to go back and read it and see what the difference is and how much it would get us. And I
Well,
think
I think,
covered. Did I
yeah.
mention anything? Not mention something? I'm not sure, but
no, well, our circuit rider person is Jen Doherty now from the
Oh, yeah.
MHC, and they have experience with her CMR, and they
yeah.
were willing to hook to connect with her on our behalf if we wanted to to speak to her about timing and
Yes.
and actually the prospect of a pre-development instead of a development grant.
Yeah.
That
I mean, that was something we really haven't talked about, and I'd like to go back and look at it a little bit more, but I was thinking probably that we were more prepared and, we've done all this extra work and we probably don't need the pre-development, but I'm starting to wonder if that really is a wise move for us. We have a complicated house that we're trying to fix up here,
Well, yeah, I mean, the real question from my point of view is with the money that we hope to get at town meeting next week, and keep in mind, this is all next Monday, that whether we have enough, I mean, we may have enough funding there to do the pre-development costs. But at the same time, if we don't, then this other kind of a grant could help us with that in order to find our way.
You mean the development grant? I mean, pre-development grant?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we may or may not need it. We've got to see
Right.
what,
Right.
we've got to see where we are in the whole process and whether the funding that we have in place, right, that we hope to have in place after next Monday will be enough so that we don't have to go that route. But if it's not going to be enough, then indeed that would be the route. Then it would
Yeah.
make sense to do that.
Yeah. And I like the way you worded it, to see where we are in the whole process, which, reminds me again, that's exactly what we were saying about getting Dan to talk with us. So hopefully those two things will come together and give us a better idea of where we really are and whether we can pull this off, without more time.
Yeah.
We need to consider the estimate that Ford Ogden sent. It doesn't say much. It gives us a price of $1,250, which is quite a bit more than the $750. But Barry's and my impression of him is quite favorable. And unless, the price is a little alarming, I'd like to vote to move it to Margaret to see if the select board will authorize mitigation money to move that forward.
All right.
Have we verified how much they had approved for that before?
It was only $750.
That's all they had approved before?
Yep, they just approved the actual estimate amount.
So
Did
it'd
he
be a matter
mention
of going
that-
back to them to get,
So
And
Monday
approval of
night,
this.
she said, if I get back to her tomorrow, they, oh no, Monday is at the town meeting. Well, on the 10th, on May 10th, she would bring it up and they would hopefully vote to let us use the money for the new estimate.
Mhm.
I think I'm in favor of doing that. I'm in favor of doing that. I move that we send this estimate in and ask if the select board would approve it.
I'll second it.
Okay. So we need a little roll call vote here. Barry
All right,
and Janet
Aye.
and June, I. So we unanimously approve moving this estimate forward.
June, can I
To our-
just hear the wording of that motion just to make sure I get it right? Unless you got it down. Did you get it down?
Let's see.
I think
Move,
that's.
move to have,
to forward the estimate.
yeah, to forward the
we have.
estimate from
Okay.
Fort Ogden in the amount of $1,250 for a replacement threshold at the front entrance of the Bullard House.
For approval by the Board of Selectmen.
Replacement threshold for approval
By the Select Board, yeah.
by select board.
Now, the question I have is that estimate is really for the millwork, the installation and the finish, which is, I think, was it linseed oil?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really all it amounts to. Do we need that to be any more specific? We
Well,
don't
that's
really
in-
have,
That was included on his estimate. Those
Those two-
words were in the,
yeah, to mill. You know, I've totally run out of ink, so I didn't get to print a lot of things that might help us tonight. But my recollection is milling, installation, and the finish with the,
yeah.
with the,
And he said what the finish would be.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
when you,
and he, in person, he said that he would use white oak. And I don't remember if that, I don't think that's in his estimate, but we could put that in.
now is it typical that we send an estimate, but that could change and that Margaret still has to decide if she's going to?
Well, if it,
or
I mean,
the
I
select board?
think if the actual invoice was under, which it, I mean, we've had an invoice that's been under what
Okay.
was estimated, and that's okay if it's, you know, we can't go over that amount.
So he can't go over that amount is what you're saying.
No, because the notice to proceed will state
Well,
the
state
amount.
that.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
This is me being a newbie and not knowing how that all works.
Well,
Yeah.
I
Well, now I
don't
do
know.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've not done this before because Elaine and Carl, well, Elaine was responsible pretty much for
Yeah.
the Bullard House statements of work and getting the paperwork and the authorization accomplished. So
Mhm.
this is, the threshold is my first little foray.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to start.
Okay, so we're good with that, and I'll communicate with her. The next thing is ever present. Barry and I went to Newton last week and retrieved our 2 inventory notebooks and 2 little thumb drives, archival thumb drives. Each drive has one of the notebooks on it. And we paid the balance due, which put it over the $500 that we had estimated for that work. So there were, let's see, $10 came out of the donations account to make up the difference. I did receive, probably the day after we retrieved the notebooks, I received a notice from Ever Present And it gives us a password and a link to download those scans. And Marty and I worked a little bit on using that so that we would understand if we were to, if someone requests it, we wanted to understand how it works. Each page is downloaded separately. You can't scroll from one to the other. You'd have to do something a little different to do that. You'd have to organize it a little differently to do that. But we're still working on that so that we understand how to send that off. I didn't send you that, and Barry, I didn't send it to you because I didn't want it to plug up your Juno account. But if we could get together at some point, maybe after town meeting, I can show you what we found out about it. I'd like to dedicate a little Chromebook that we have. It's a very limited little computer to the download of those 2 inventory notebooks, so that we would just have something that always had it on there. We can also put these on thumb drives. Anyway.
Oh, it also would be good for us if we could put it on the mainframe, the main files at the town offices.
Yeah, that I was
Because if
thinking,
we once got it in there, then it's there and available to us anytime that way.
yeah, that would be great. Maybe
but-
James could help us with that at the town
Oh,
offices.
yeah. Oh, easily,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I still am a bit flummoxed by the fact that each file is 1 page at a time.
Well, I think when you use the link, when you use the link, that's how it's presented to you.
Mhm.
But Marty, it was trying to explain to me early this morning that once once it's downloaded, you can put it, you can put each notebook or both notebooks on the same thumb drive, and you would be able to move from one page to another.
And James has also told me, in regard to some other stuff I did last year, that he can combine those into a larger file that has all of them in it or whatever.
Yeah. So I think we just have to have a better understanding of it.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that. Maybe we'll get to that next week. I don't know how you want to go forward with the photographing of the artifacts. I did ask EverPresent at one point if they had people on their staff that did that kind of photography, and they said no, that they don't do anything like that, and they didn't have any referrals. So we need to think about the part 2 of the digital imaging project and how we want to go about that.
And which artifacts would you be photographing?
Well, Barry has identified some of they're the ones that we consider most important for the money that we've been given. We've got $4,500. And I based that on if you actually got contracted a person, a photographer to do that, I was basing it on $1,000 a day for 4 days. And then you'd need some kind of assistance, some, what they call what do they call it? There's a special word for it. Someone who helps you set up. oh, I can't think what that word is. Anyway, it's someone who helps you set up the objects or whatever it is you're doing. If you're doing commercial work, that you're setting up products to be, to be photographed. A stylist. It's a stylist. That's the
Oh, good
commercial
God.
commercial name for it. But, we're just talking about someone who's capable enough to be of assistance to the photographer so that you save time. It's really all it amounts to. So that's in the near future.
Our goal was to do like 50 objects or perhaps
Right.
more from the collection that we thought would be interesting and perhaps have a little more prestige, and that we would then have those get those up online as to give the general public some idea of what we have. And so that people can, when people say, well, what do you have in that collection? And you say, well, we have this, here's a few examples of it. Here's 50 things you can look at. And of course, those images can also be put into the computer in the past perfect files with the objects so that they become the documentary photos for those objects.
Yeah. And it's, if something happens to something, if it should be, if it should get damaged or lost or,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't, or
They
misplaced
become
for a
insurance
while.
images.
Yeah, it helps. It's a preservation tool as well as an accessibility vehicle. Okay, and the other thing is not that urgent, but I did hope that we would think about getting a work-off employee to help us either with the collection or with our backlog of things in the Bullard House that we might want to protect better. I'm open to suggestions there, but we really need more manpower. And if we were able to get an interested, conscientious person, I think it would make a big difference to what, or make a difference at least to what we can accomplish. So
I don't know what to say about it. There's so much to do to get somebody trained to do anything like that. I mean, they have to work. We've got to work with them
right.
for a good while before we can turn them loose at all.
Well, maybe we should just start with some drudge projects. I mean, you have to start somewhere. If we could identify a couple of projects that aren't onerous, we're not talking about a whole day's work. The number of hours that you can actually expend are it's limited. And we decide that. If it's only 10 hours a month, then that's what it is. We decide that. I think
it seems to me we've got to do more in terms of defining what the work would be before we can do
but
it.
I want us to do that. And maybe if we could think a little bit more about that by the time we meet in May, we could at least identify one or two things that we would be willing to work with someone. I certainly would. I need the consensus of the group to say this is something that you can do with somebody else who's not part of the structure already. We do have society people, that would have some familiarity. Maybe some of them should be approached to see if they would consider a work-off opportunity. I mean, we just have to start somewhere and
I
not
guess,
just
I
give
guess
up.
the way that I would put it is look at society people and see if they want to work on something. And secondly, point out that if they're seniors or veterans, they have the potential of doing it as a work off to get some off their taxes.
Okay,
I mean, that would be a way that I could approach it better than putting it out as just anybody come in and do this, because I don't know what we might get. And we haven't defined enough what we want them to do, so.
So-
well, you're gonna
so I
have to
heard-
help me do that.
I heard you say that we could start defining that by maybe bringing our ideas to the May meeting. And so
May meeting.
sometimes when you're off by yourself and you're not in a meeting, it's easier to say, I just thought of something that somebody could do.
Yeah.
And so why don't we try at least to do that we each bring at least one idea for something that could be
Mhm.
done in the work-off department. And, if we can come up with some things that require varied skills, then that might be easier to match up. So try to come back maybe with more than one idea.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I have
if-
no problem with the fact that we've got to help them develop the skills they need anyway, but
Right.
they got to be willing to spend some time learning what to do and developing enough understanding so that they can, they can do something at least somewhat independently.
Mhm. We could give it
Okay.
a try. I think we
Well-
should give it a try. Do we need a motion or shall we just say we're going to do it?
I think that's all right.
I think we just need to bring our ideas next time. And also, I know that it's, perhaps Barry, you could introduce the possibility of more involvement to the board of directors of the Historical Society, and then see what reactions you get from the board.
Well, that's some of it, and we can also be a little more direct in terms of custodial people to let's sit down and talk in a little bigger group than we usually have. Just 2 or 3 of us. It could be nice to have 4 or 5.
Yeah.
The other thing is that it might be that as we plan programs, there may be some prep work involved. If it's a program around some hands-on skill that we're going to give people an opportunity to learn something from the past, maybe, you might need some prep work for that sort of thing. So
Yeah,
as we develop programs, we might find that help preparing for those. Certainly not the lectures, because you got to know what you're talking about, but.
I know, but
other
Okay.
things.
well, that's all I had on my little sheet here for the agenda for tonight. I want to just identify the things I have to follow through with. One, I have to get together with you, Barry, with to make those copies for Monday.
yeah,
So when do you think we should try to do that?
when do you have time?
Well, we could do it. Are we allowed to go into the town offices?
I can go in anytime.
Oh, that's
Oh.
right. You have a fob. Yeah.
Did they ever give you a fob?
No, I never asked for one.
Oh. Well, I've
But,
still got one, so.
okay, good. Well, let's see. I could even do it Sunday afternoon. Or we could leave it till Monday morning. Do you have a preference?
Yeah, I think I'd say Sunday afternoon. It's gotta be early afternoon. I've got another I might want to go to Ashburnham for the concert later in the afternoon.
Okay, well, do you want to leave it till Monday morning? I mean,
Well, I mean,
let's
it
see.
can be done then, but I have,
Let's see. I could do it, I could do it Saturday. I'm not sure. Eddie Hoffman is having his 75th birthday. And that's all I know is Saturday. I don't know what time or anything. Is Saturday, I can go and ask Marty, is Saturday a good day for you or?
I'm gonna be at Sturbridge a good part of the day, rehearsing in the morning and we're gonna do a couple of concerts into the afternoon. I'm usually home from that by 2:30,
On Saturday?
2:30 or 3. So I could do something after that on Saturday.
Let me just ask him if he knows what time Eddie's birthday is. Do you know anything more about Eddie's birthday? What do you know? The time? Okay. Eddie's party is in Leicester at noontime, so I would hope that I would be back by 4. You want me to just call you?
Yeah, call me. And I
Call-
mean, I can do it even in the evening on Saturday, so
Yeah, I could too.
it's no big deal that way. And I
Okay,
just soon have it done before Monday, because Monday I've got to deal with setting up town meeting and I don't know.
yeah.
We
well,
had one in the fall and it worked out pretty well, but I've almost forgotten how I set it up, so I got to go do it again.
Okay.
It was because of the spacing of the chairs and stuff, it's different than it always was before.
Okay, so I'll call you. I'll call you when I get back, and it won't be any later than 4, and then we could go after supper, whatever, however it will work out.
Yeah.
Okay, and the other thing I have to do is communicate with Margaret about the threshold. And I think, and I can also, I think we're sort of up in the air about the architectural, how to fund that. Do you want me to wait? Well, I can at least send Dan another email and tell him that we want to set up an exploratory meeting with him and what's the easiest way to do that with him. And that could be scheduled. That could be scheduled anytime that will work, I guess, after town meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's it. Is there anything else we should mention?
I can't think of anything.
Okay. Well, except for meeting with Dan, hopefully we can make it till May, our May regular meeting. Okay, should we have a motion to adjourn?
So
I move
moved.
to adjourn. Oh,
Second,
okay.
Okay. Barry
second. Aye.
and Janet
Aye.
and June, aye.